Welcome to Cloudcast, where you get an inside look at St. Cloud, Florida's local government. Whether you live, work, or play here, we're bringing you the information you need to better understand your city. Cloudcast is hosted by our communications team, including Mariama Batchelder, Andrew Sullivan, Deborah Carson, and Jay B. Miller. Thanks for listening in to Cloudcast.
All right, welcome back, St. Cloud. We are excited to have you join us again for another edition of Cloudcast. My name is Mariama. I'm here in studio with Jay B. Miller.
Hey, everybody.
And we have a special guest with us in studio today. We have Tammy, who works in our community development department. And she's here today to talk about something that's near and dear to all of our hearts, which is transportation, or as we like to call it, that traffic I'm sitting in all that time every day. So, Tammy, welcome. Welcome to Cloudcast.
Thank you.
Appreciate your being here today. And I know last year the city adopted our Transportation and Mobility Master Plan. So that was completed, adopted, and finalized. So I know that we are doing something now with the transportation element. So can you kind of talk me through what that means and how it's related to that Transportation and Mobility Master Plan that was adopted last year? And most of all, how is this going to help us with traffic?
Of course. So our transportation element is part of our comprehensive plan update. Comprehensive plans, we look into the growth of the city for the next 20, 30 years. And it's basically our roadmap to how we want to tackle our issues and manage growth overall.
Okay.
So with the Transportation and Mobility Master Plan, that was our time to collect data and to look at the network system that we have, our streets, identify the streets that had some kind of constraints, which streets could be used for multimodal opportunities, where we could see transit facilities in the future, bike lanes, trails. It was also an opportunity for us to look into the jurisdiction roles, county, city, and state in maintaining the roadways.
Yes.
So now we're using all that data and analysis that were collected at the master plan stage and updating our transportation element to reflect that data update, basically.
Okay. So, and again, during that master plan process that was completed last year, we had community meetings. We got community input. We were sharing some of this data and analysis with the community, and then that was adopted at that time. So we're now updating the transportation element to coincide with what that Transportation and Mobility Master Plan showed, correct?
Correct. So the master plan update took about 18 months, and during that time period, we had different public meetings, and we had an online survey. We went to different community events to get people's feedback. The data, obviously, is really important when we're making these plans, but we also need real people feedback on them, and we got a lot of good comments that we were able to implement to the master plan.
Okay. And you kind of touched on this a little bit, but the city of St. Cloud, we control city streets and roads, right? There's a lot of other roadways within both our city and within our region, our area, where people are driving every day that aren't controlled by the city. They're county roads, they're state roads. We have the turnpike, obviously. Talk to me a little bit about how the city works with the county and the state and the Turnpike Enterprise on some of these plannings that happen for managing the growth in traffic that corresponds with the growth in the area.
Yeah. So we have regular meetings with other agencies to talk about those issues on a daily basis. Both the county and the city are involved in reviewing development applications. So anything that is proposed within city limits that is adjacent to a county-maintained road, the county reviews those applications as well. We also adopted the same methodology when we are reviewing those new developments, meaning that just for us to see what kind of impact they will bring on the roadways and what kind of improvements need to be made. And having that consistent between the county and the city is really helpful, so we have the same quality of roadways on both sides.
Right. So we're both singing from the same songbook, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to mention for our listeners who may not know this, on the city's website, we have a tool that I think is extremely helpful because it shows all the roadways in our region, and whether they're city, county, state, what have you, they're all listed on there. And it's an interactive map. It's driven by GIS, and you can actually, if you're interested in, let's just say 192, for example, you can go on this site and you can see, who's in charge of the road. In this case, it's the state. But you can look at any upcoming projects that are planned for it, any construction, and just get a lot of data that way. So that's a tool that's great that the city provides that has information not just on our own assets, but also on those other roadways because, we know people are on them every day. So let's get back to talking about the transportation element.
The main goal of the transportation element is to provide a safe, efficient, and convenient transportation system for all users. So with the updates of the master plan last year and also the Vision Zero action plan that was approved around the same time, we look at that data and at the best practices from those plans, and we are updating the element to reflect that. So we have one guiding document that has all of our goals and objectives in one place. And another part of updating these documents the way that we do is because when we go and include any kind of roadway improvement projects in our capital improvement plans and go through the process of actually implementing these changes, they need to be backed up by this data. Usually it takes about 30 or 60 days to get the review from the state back, and then based on their feedback and on their comments, we make any changes if applicable. And our goal is to take this element for adoption later this year, probably August or September.
Okay, so let me make sure that I heard you correctly. So when it gets to the state, transportation planners review it, make any comments. Typically that'll take 30 to 60 days or so. And then the city will get that information back from the state, make any necessary changes that may be required after that state review. And then after that point, then we would take it forward for another public hearing. Is that correct?
Correct. It will be the last public hearing to vote on the adoption of the element.
Okay. So we're guesstimating right now that final public hearing would be August-ish, maybe somewhere around that timeline. Correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So I guess my kind of question here, and I'm sure if you're listening to our podcast right now while you're commuting to and from work or you're on the turnpike, is that's all well and good, but how is this going to help me in my commute if I'm sitting in traffic for 45 minutes every day? So can you talk a little bit about how, as planners, we're always looking 20 years into the future. As a driver, you're always looking at today, right? Like that windshield is full of red lights ahead of you. So how do exercises like what we're doing right now benefit people in the here and now and help us move toward that next step of improving our transportation network?
The transportation element itself looks at that kind of longer term vision for the city and for the transportation network. But those are things that we can start doing right now to get there in the future. Right. So through the new development that is coming in and projects and improvements that we have identified now, we can start working towards them and creating different partnerships and keep coordinating with the county and the state for the improvements that we need now as well. And all of that will be the foundation for the network that we want in the future, right? Yeah. So as new development is coming in and other places that we already identified, like I mentioned, everything that is on these plans backs up for the projects that we want to make and any grants that we want to apply for to fund these initiatives. So it's important to have them outlined so we can go after the opportunities to implement them.
Right, exactly. We have to commit it to paper formally so that we can pursue those fundings. And we were talking a little earlier, the plans that we're making now, yes, I mean, planners are looking 10, 20 longer years into the future. Planners 10 and 20 years ago were looking at 2025, right? So today is the future from their perspective. And you plan for growth, but man, I don't know unless you had a crystal ball how anybody could have projected the kind of growth that we have seen in Osceola County. When you look at the census numbers from 2010 to 2020, just the exponential growth, really about doubled in that 10 years. And from 2020 to now, I mean, St. Cloud's knocking on 70,000 population here. I just, it's mind-boggling when you stop to think about it. And it's not unique to St. Cloud. It's not unique to Osceola County. People have discovered Florida, and they've discovered that you don't have to unfreeze your door locks to go to work in January and things like that. So, it's kind of a double-edged sword living in Florida. It's a great place to be, minus Florida man. But, it comes with some downsides, because the same way that you and I have discovered Florida and we love it and it's a great place to live, so have all these other people. And as much as we'd love to shut and lock the door after we get here, you can't do that. Other people have discovered Florida, they discovered St. Cloud, Osceola County. So here we are with all of our friends, family, and neighbors on the Turnpike, on 192, on Canoe Creek Road, et cetera. So, but to your point, we're planning, we're working with our regional partners to put things into place. We've seen the governor advancing funding and advancing construction schedules on some major projects in our general region. Just recently, a new widened segment of I-4 opened up 8 months ahead of schedule, because they really were pushing to get that done, because it was such a bottleneck area there between the Polk and Osceola County line area. So the state, the county, the expressway, the local governments, we're doing what we can to address the issue, and our transportation element is a big piece of that. Is it going to fix it overnight? No, but it puts the pieces in place to help us get where we need to be. So,
exactly, it's where we'll base our policies and requirements moving forward from. And like you said, people 10, 15 years ago were planning for today, and the advantage that we have today is that we have a lot better data, a lot better technology and models and forecasts to do this work. So we have a little bit more idea of what needs to be done, and use that as a reference. But we also update our transportation mobility master plan every 5 years to take it into account those moving pieces, and the element is also updated every 7 years. Yes. So even though we're planning for the next 20 or 30, we check in on these more
on the
often.
Shorter, more in the near future, so to speak.
Exactly.
So, well, Tammy, thank you so much for coming in. Is there anything else that we need to understand about this that we haven't covered yet?
I think we covered pretty much everything. The comprehensive plan is a statutory requirement here in Florida, so all cities are required to have a comprehensive plan and maintain it. So when you look at the comprehensive plan, there's different parts in it. The transportation specifically, we have specific things that we need to report back to the state. So that's kind of our part, doing that and adopting some of their best practices. And so we're all aligned, and we all have the same goal with transportation. Right. Us, the county, the state, we're working towards the same objectives, and that makes it a lot easier to make things happen.
Absolutely, yeah. If you don't have a target, you're never going to hit it, right? So that's great. Jay, you've been awfully quiet over there again. That always makes me nervous. What's going on in Jay's head?
Well, this is, once again, a very incredibly complex topic.
Yes.
You go on Facebook, and obviously you see what people say on there. And, all I've got to say is that you've got an incredibly difficult job trying to make all those drivers happy. And so what I'm wondering, is there like some kind of a National Traffic Planners Week or Traffic Planners Day or something like that?
I'm not sure for traffic planners specifically.
Okay, well, maybe we need to get that started because you guys...
There would be, but they're all stuck in traffic.
Yeah,
You
that's
can't
right.
get there, right?
Yep, that's right. All right, well, maybe there should be. So that's something to think about because you guys deserve some celebration for that work.
It's a tough job, particularly in Florida right now in 2025. So, Tammy, thank you so much for joining us in studio today and letting us know about this transportation element that'll be coming forward at a couple of public meetings. So, appreciate your being here. And St. Cloud, thank you for joining us again on another edition of Cloudcast, and we hope to talk with you again soon.
Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
That's it for this edition of Cloudcast. Don't forget to like, follow, rate, and review, and we'll see you next time on Cloudcast.